I've been looking forward to this podcast for a long time. I can't wait for you to meet my friend, Therese Pitman, who joined the University of Pittsburgh Department of Athletics in July 2024 as the Director of Student Athlete Development. Now, in her role currently, she cultivates relationships with external partners, including employers, mentors, and alum. And she serves as the primary life skills advisor for the wrestling and dive programs, where she supports student athletes in their holistic development. She is also a member of the Panthers United Board, which focuses on equity, inclusion, and diversity to build a culture of belonging for all student athletes. She has a very interesting and unique backstory. She was a student athlete, and she's now pivoted into a role where she's supporting other student athletes all throughout leadership. So I'm so excited for you to listen to her story, how she got where she is today, and advice she has for those that are looking to get involved in sports. Take a listen. I'm so excited, one, that we came to this moment and that we're here. And two, just to have you on. I mean, it's just so special and exciting.
Thank you so much for having me. And like I said, happy National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. It's a perfect day to be recording this kind of podcast.
Absolutely. And I have to say that I think when we first connected, we instantly hit it off because of just shared experiences and values and just excitement for the next step in leadership and women's sports. So I think it's just such a critical time, and I'm so excited for people to learn all about you, your journey, and the work that you're doing.
Well, thanks so much, Ashley. That's kind of you.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. I know that people know a bit about you, but I want to start with your journey, right? Because you
Yes.
were a student athlete and now you're leading student athlete development at Pitt. So can you just take us back in time and give us this story of your experiences and your journey?
Yes, I can certainly paint the picture for you. So I have been a student athlete my entire life. From the time I was 3 years old, I always had some kind of ball in my hand. My family is a huge athletics family. My uncles, aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters played either high school sports or sports in college. And so it was always around me. And the cool thing is, we never really picked one sport that we were biased to and that we all played. We all played very different sports. It was a very versatile household of different sports that were happening. And so was a three-sport athlete in high school. I played soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, and ended up playing lacrosse in the spring. I loved basketball. Has always been my first love. Since I was really young, my dad was my first ever coach, and my brother played Division I basketball, and so I thought I was going to follow in his footsteps and play basketball in college. The tides turned when my high school board decided they were going to implement a women's lacrosse program. And so in 10th grade, I joined this inaugural program just to see what it's all about. And I fell in love with lacrosse. And I think I fell in love with it so quickly and so hard because it was new to me, and I'm someone that loves an exciting new adventure. And I felt there was so much to learn in lacrosse, and not that there wasn't much to learn in basketball, but I had played it my whole life. So it was like the back of my hand, I knew it inside and out. And so playing lacrosse was very exciting. And at the end of my junior year of high school, I had one scholarship to play Division I lacrosse. And of course, I took it. It just so happened to be a great academic school as well. And so it was a win-win on both ends, academically and athletically. And so I go to Binghamton University and I start my Division I lacrosse career. And honestly, during that first 2 years of college, my freshman and sophomore years, I was a bench warmer. I didn't get into very many games. I found my role as a sideline hype woman. I was a practice player. I pushed my teammates as hard as I could. I brought the energy. And although I wasn't starting, I still loved playing lacrosse in college. The idea of having a community of women I could lean on and could support was really great for me in college. Now, I eventually ended up transferring to Siena College, which is a tiny private school on the other side of New York. I'm from upstate New York. That's why I attended these two New York schools. And so I went to Siena College as a walk-on. And being a walk-on, there was no pressure for me. I didn't feel like I needed to be the best player, but if I was, awesome. And I also didn't feel like if I was the worst player, it would be, the biggest deal in the world, and worked in my favor. I ended up starting and playing every game my junior year as a walk-on. Ended up receiving some pretty high honors, which was incredible from the conference. And at the end of that year, I was voted team captain. So all around, I had just built my confidence as a Division I athlete at Siena and loved my time there. COVID comes around my senior year, boom, takes my season right out. And that was heartbreaking for me. I felt like I was just getting my feet under me playing lacrosse in college, and I didn't feel it was my time to retire. So I decide I'm going to go into the transfer portal and see where I can continue my lacrosse career. I felt that I couldn't at Siena because there was only one master's program at Siena, and it wasn't one that I was interested in. So for myself, educationally, it made sense to go somewhere else, which was heartbreaking because I loved playing at Siena. But at the same time, it was exciting to hear from the coach at the University of Pittsburgh that they were starting an inaugural women's lacrosse team. And so, greatest gift of my life, attending the University of Pittsburgh and helping build this inaugural ACC program from the ground up. What a unique, exciting, historical moment in time for me back in 2020. And so I spent the 2020-2021 season just practicing. We did not play that year. We did not debut that year. We just had 12 players here practicing on campus. And some would say, you're crazy for doing that, Therese. Why would you only just practice for an entire year with no games at the Division I level when you were required to, practice for 3 hours a day, go to lift, go to leadership training, still travel to some scrimmages here and there. And I did it because I knew it was going to pave the way for more women in sports to come, not only as female athletes, but as female coaches, trainers, weight coaches, and strength and conditioning coaches. So there was a lot of opportunity to expand and share the wealth. It wasn't just about me. It was about everybody else that was going to come after me. And so in 2021, 2022, we have our inaugural program. And it is the best season ever. We go 500, which is incredible for an ACC program because, as you know, ACC lacrosse is the best lacrosse, not only in the country, but in the world. The best players in the world play here in the United States. And so I felt very honored to be playing with and against some of the best players in the world. And I think the greatest gift from all of it was the life skills department here at Pitt. I felt so supported outside of my athletic identity, and it really made me feel comfortable in my transition from being an athlete, a student athlete, to the professional working world. And when I get into the professional working world, I have a job lined up because the people here in life skills, they helped me build my resume. They helped me with a mock interview. They helped me find the NCAA postgraduate internship, which is what I participated in my year after graduating. And I also got to get so much volunteer opportunities and experiences from them. So, long story short, I felt very cared for here at Pitt. And when I graduated, I of course wanted to do the life skills student athlete development job because it made me feel so comfortable and confident leaving school and being a student athlete. And so that leads me to my time at the National Collegiate Athletic Association. I feel very grateful that I was able to spend a year with their leadership development office, traveling across the country, putting on leadership programs for student athletes, coaches, and administrators, and learned so much in that year that when I went to get my first full-time job here back at Pitt, I was so prepared and ready to go. I showed up and I had so many ideas. I added so much value. I asked great questions. I really leaned into leadership and managing. And my first job after the NCAA, I loved as well. Leadership development just for the regular student body here at Pitt. I was working in student affairs. Just waiting for my time to come back up here to the athletics department, which I eventually did. And now I'm up here serving as the director for student athlete development in the Kathy and John Pelusi Family Life Skills Program. feel very honored, full circle moment, of course, to be sitting on the opposite side of the desk as when I was a student athlete. And now I'm not the one venting and asking for all kinds of resources, but I'm the one providing them. And so it feels really great to give back to the students in the shoes I was once in. And it makes the job so much easier when I can say, hey, I was literally in your shoes not too long ago and know exactly what you're going through. So what do you need from me and how can I help you? It's the greatest feeling ever. So I'll put a period on it there. Thanks, Ashley.
And one of the things I love so much too about, your story beyond that, the trajectory and the support that you had and the empowerment and everything is that you understand so clearly what the students are going through. These student athletes are going through. You get it because you were there, right? And that is the huge difference. And what I'm excited to really hear about are your own approaches to this leadership style and to building student athlete development. So we know that you were a team captain, and we know that you had all of this amazing career, with women's lacrosse. But could you talk about maybe how those experiences shaped you and your leadership style and how you work with the student athletes now?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think I'm a situational leader. That's what I like to call it because I think at every point in my career as a student athlete at three different universities, working at the NCAA and now here back at Pitt, I think I've shifted and grown my leadership style to match what is needed of me. And so when I was a freshman and sophomore at Binghamton University and I was a bench warmer, I owned my role as a bench warmer. What my teams needed from me as a leader was to be the cheerleader, to be the support, to push them in practice. And so I owned that role. And so the message I take away from that time in life and what I share with my students now is it's okay if you're not playing every minute of every game. That doesn't define who you are. It's a learning experience. And so you need to own your role. You're not going to be the leader in every room that you step into, in every group that you're in your first time job. And so get used to not being in the spotlight all the time. That's not reality. And so I think that time in my life was the message I share there. And then as a junior and a senior, when I'm a walk-on and, I get voted as captain, I start owning the role of just being who you are. And I think that was my entire persona at Siena. I'm a queer woman. I have an invisible disability, and I am someone who doesn't come from a lot of money and wealth. And I just owned all of those things about me. And because I did, other people felt comfortable being who they were. And so owning your true, authentic self is really important. And so what I tell my student athletes now from that is own who you are. Just because being an athlete comes with a lot of flashiness and sexiness and ego doesn't mean that you need to take that on as your whole persona. What are you beside that? And once you own that about yourself, it's easier for people to follow you as a leader. And it's also easier for you to make decisions and navigate your career. So that's what I take from that. And then I think at Pitt, the biggest thing that I take away from that time in my life as a leader is being grateful for the opportunity. And I think a lot of times people take for granted being a student athlete or working in athletics. And sometimes you need to press the pause button and realize that so many people would want to be in your shoes and wish they could be in your shoes. And so are you grateful for the moment? Are you present? Do you tell people you appreciate them? Do you give yourself grace? And I did that a lot. I practiced gratitude a lot when I was in graduate school here at Pitt for the inaugural season. And then I would say my final piece of leadership that I learned in my roles now are, let me think about this for a second. I think reflection. I tell my student athletes often now, reflect on where you've been, what you've learned from those experiences, whether it was a big win or a terrible loss. Sit in how you felt in that moment analyze the heck out of it, and then move on, knowing how to either adjust the situation because it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, or do it the same way if it went really, really well. But you have to have that moment of reflection and peace. And so that's a practice that I have in my role now and something that I hope my student athletes can take with them once they graduate, that idea of reflection. So lots of different leadership moments in my career and different personas that I've taken on and different messages. But at the end of the day, I always say situational leadership. Give people what they need in the moment. Nothing more, nothing less. Support where you can. And yeah.
I love it. I think one of the early times that you and I had talked, and I mentioned this a lot to people, when we're first getting into these different careers in athletics, we sometimes forget, and when you're first starting out, I hear this a ton. It's like, wow, I didn't know that I could do this job or this job. I didn't know that I could help students in this way. I didn't know that I could be, do media or all these things. And so
Yeah.
going back to really your work and your role with student athletes, can you just talk a little bit about like being the director of student athlete development? Like one, what does that just mean? And two, can you give us some examples or insight into how you cultivate relationships with external partners, how you provide students with these amazing opportunities to really grow their leadership skills on and off the field, on and off the court, etc.
Yes, I love that question. And you're absolutely right. I think that students only know about a handful of different jobs or careers that you can obtain in athletics, and there is so many. And when people hear my job, Director of Student Athlete Development, they assume that I'm programming all the time, which is not necessarily the case. And heavily in my role now, I do cultivate external partners with companies and organizations, not only across Pittsburgh, but across the state of Pennsylvania and states across the country. And ways that I engage them include our mentorship program, our shadowing experiences, our internship opportunities, informal interviews, all kinds of different ways. But I always start the conversation with these external partners with what are you looking for from us? Because it's a two-way street. It's not just we need our student athletes to get jobs when they graduate, and so can you provide all these experiences to us? But it's how can we be a good partner to our employers and our companies and orgs? And so to do that, they often say, we are looking for very strong talent, hardworking, dedicated, goal-oriented, motivated students that can then become employees here. And I'm like, well, great, because our Pitt student athletes own all of those qualities that you're looking for. They are smart, dedicated, organized, exceptional, have great leadership skills because they are student athletes and at the Division I level and at a Power Five institution that really cares about academics. So they win all around with our students as employees eventually. So it is that two-way street, right? They're giving our student athletes mentorship experience, shadowing opportunities, internship experiences, informal interviews, networking opportunities, right? But then in return, they're getting these wonderful employees that are our student athletes when they graduate. And so one of my favorite most recent initiatives is giving companies and organizations the opportunity to host a handful of our student athletes. And so recently we went to the PepsiCo facility here in Pittsburgh and brought a handful of students there. And they were able to sell their company to us, tell us the inside and out of why they love their company, who they help, what type of talent they're looking for. And our student athletes could ask questions, got to see the facility, got to take home some goodies. And then they come back here into my office and they say, okay, what is it going to take for me to be able to work there? And I'm like, well, you already have a great start because now you have the connections there. You asked meaningful questions when you were there and you know what the facility looks like. So it's a win-win all around being able to bring our student athletes around to these different companies and orgs and for them to then eventually hire them is really cool.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's just such a empowering and amazing position, right? And having people know that are listening to this, especially young people, that these positions in athletics are out there, right? And if you have these many different interests, and especially if you
Hmm.
have this interest in mentorship and leadership development, you can do these at various levels,
Yes.
especially in college and university athletics. I mean, it's such an empowering space for sure.
Yeah, whether it's direct or indirect too, right? Like some people are very student athlete facing and others are not, but the impact is the same. And technically my job isn't student athlete facing, but I just laid out a number of reasons why it is so helpful for them, for me to exist. And so, yeah, I have the best job in the world. And anytime that I can share other opportunities and other types of jobs we have here in the athletic department, I'm happy to. So thanks for asking that question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I want to pivot a bit because I hear this question a lot, and I'm curious what your response is to it. Um, Lots of people are curious with your advice and feedback, especially how it relates to the transition, right? When athletes are transitioning from college sports to their post-athletic careers. Now, you as somebody who was an athlete and did that pivot, but also somebody who works every day to help empower young people to really think about these things. I'm curious what advice you have on this transition. Like, what would you say to student athletes?
So I certainly lived it, so I can share from that experience, but also from working with dozens of them every day. I would say first, I encourage them to find something they love outside of their sport before they graduate. Find a hobby, whether that is running, cooking, making music, reviewing movies, you name it, something that isn't going to end when your athletic career does. And for some student athletes, they want to continue to remain competitive or remain close to their sport, and that is absolutely great. Can they do it in ways such as coaching, or as picking up a workout class, or as becoming an avid fan for a certain sports team? And so I challenge them to really think about other things outside of their sport that they can hone over the next dozen of years that they will be alive, because this is just a blip in their lifetime. I also tell them that they need to find friends that aren't student athletes. I think I learned this personally. I always had a group of friends that were not student athletes because they gave me the hard reality, really good perspective of what it's like to not be told what to do every hour, every day. And it was really helpful for me because when I graduated, they weren't mourning and all of the student athletes were. And so it was nice to be around that positive energy of people that didn't have to feel that loss. Now, I am also aware that you do need somebody to go through that experience with that understands it. And they will because they have teammates and they have friends that were student athletes. But it's also nice to have that other perspective. So always find some friends that are not student athletes while you're in college. And then I also tell them to, this is my third piece of advice. I tell them to schedule their own time because it is just assumed that when they graduate, they're going to know how to work out and they're going to know how to cook and they're going to know where to be and when. And that's not the case. It is a hard reality when they get to the real world and no one is telling them where to be and when. And no one is telling them how many reps to do or how many sets to do in the gym. And no one is cooking meals for them. So they need to learn how to, maybe on the weekends, plan out their Sunday. When are they going to work out? What type of workout are they going to do? What are they going to cook? Are they going to go shopping to get the food to cook? Who are they hanging out with and when and where, right? All of these simple things that you think that you have down when you're in college, very simple. You don't have it down. So really practice it before you graduate. So that would be my third piece of advice for student athletes who are transitioning. I also want to give a shout out to my Life After Sport class. I teach a 3 credit Life After Sport class in the spring semester, and I have 40 senior and graduate student athletes who are in this exact phase right now. And in the class, we not only talk about the three things I just talked about, but we also talk about interview prep, resume prep, how to network with people, how to follow up. And it's too late if you're thinking about all that career prep stuff the day before graduation. So to just keep that in the top of your mind too, that you have to have a job when you graduate, or at least you should be trying to obtain one. And so it's never too early to start thinking about all of the different elements of your career preparation.
Oh man, I would love to just sit in on that class because that information I think is just so interesting and critical and important for everyone to know.
Yes.
And they're so lucky to have you teaching it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's super fun. I have a lot of guest speakers, have a really good network, so it's been really great.
Mhm. Absolutely. We talked about this a little bit before too, but I'm curious from your perspective, right? The world of athletics is changing every day. But thinking about your role, um, and just student athlete development in general, how do you envision it developing and evolving to meet the changing needs of athletes today?
Yeah, that is a very pressing question at this point in time in college athletics. It's one that gets asked often as of recent because there is so much change on the horizon and so much change that has happened in the past couple of years. And so, particularly in the student athlete development space, you'll see a shift across the country in regard to less leadership development and less maybe volunteer experiences, less diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which is all heartbreaking to me because I believe it is extremely valuable and important. But you'll see the shift or the focus turn to financial literacy and NIL, as well as career development. And that's just my honest opinion and what I foresee. It's not what I would hope for, but it's definitely the trajectory I think we are taking. And so you'll also see across the country this need for budget reallocations. And so you might not see as many staff in student athlete development positions. They're going to be very coveted and hard to obtain. And so I think it is important at this time for people who work in student athlete development to continue to let people know how important our work is and not just roll over. We need to stand our ground. We need to continue to provide where we can for these student athletes because just because they are making hundreds of thousands of dollars doesn't mean that we can just put to the wayside their leadership skills and what they're able to learn, and also their volunteer work and their identity. DEI is their identity, who they are and what they stand for. And if you don't know who you are and what you stand for, you're never going to be a good leader. And so that is where I see athletics in the future, the near future, whether I like it or not. But I am very fortunate that I get to continue to do what I do and provide this really meaningful experience for our current student athletes.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it briefly before too, but that whole role of NIL and just investment in, the branding of student athletes, right? I mean, it's such an interesting space now, and I think
Yeah.
that's what makes your position and role so critical to where we
hmm
are because they need your advice and feedback and insight.
Yes, yes. And I think a lot of times people confuse NIL and pay for play and scholarship. So just to clear the air for all our listeners, NIL, name, image, and likeness, is separate from pay for play, which is also separate from scholarship. So you could have one student athlete who is making a salary here at the University of Pittsburgh to play on top of any NIL deals that they have, on top of a potential scholarship that they have. And I am all for name, image, and likeness. I think it's incredible that student athletes can go out and support brands that they believe in. It's the pay for play that adds a lot of murkiness to the waters because these students are going to be seeing way more money in their lifetime in such a short period of time that they're not going to know what to do with it. And so it's more important now than ever for the life skills student athlete development staff to be coaching them on proper money management. And that's why the financial literacy NIL roles will be so important. We don't want them to just blow all of their money. We want them to invest and save and think about their future because they aren't going to get that paycheck once they graduate, most likely, because not every student athlete is going to play professionally. And so being responsible with your money is going to be the name of the game in the next couple of years with our student athletes. And career development is going to continue to be important because you always have to have a backup plan. You're not going to be an athlete forever. So how can we help you build that plan B?
That's so important. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I think so many people are going to continue to have those questions and insights, and we need to keep talking about it, right? We need to keep bringing it up. This last question, and I love asking it, and it's my favorite one. And I'm excited for your response. And we've asked this now lots of times, and each response gets more interesting. But it does. What does
That's good.
unleashing your inner queen mean to you? That's
Yeah,
part one. And part two, how do you unleash your inner queen?
for sure. I love that this question or these two questions are so unique to this podcast. And I would say unleashing my inner queen means continuing to challenge the status quo in a male cisgendered dominated world of college athletics. I want to make the community more inclusive and fair to all people. And as we talked about before this podcast started, I think sports, particularly for women and particularly for transgender women and non-binary folks, is a bit under attack. And so, as much as we can help this group feel welcome and part of the community, the better. And I unleash my inner queen by conducting meaningful work. I am a doctoral student here at the University of Pittsburgh, studying the LGBTQIA student athlete experience. So, continuing to find and share knowledge is my mission. I'm so sick of opinions. We need facts, we need studies, we need impactful work to continue to happen. And I'm going to do that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. This is so incredible, and I just appreciate your work and leadership, but also just for taking the time and sharing everything. Now, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, we direct them to Pitt Athletics, but also any special shout out you want to make in terms of how to contact you.
Yeah, people can contact me really on any medium. It can be my email, which is tmp103@pitt.edu. Or you can follow me on Instagram. That's probably where I'm the most active, and it's just Therese_Pitman. If you DM me on Instagram, I will answer. Don't take that for granted, but that is open for the public. And like I said, my email is always accessible. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Or if you just want to network, that's cool too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your insight. We just so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I think this podcast is so, so incredibly important for sharing the voices of so many incredible people, including incredible women.
Thank you.